Hey folks, Erick Stakelbeck here. Welcome to the Watchman Newscast live stream, a very eventful Wednesday in the world's most chaotic, volatile, and yes, strategic and prophetic region, the Middle East. We're talking Israel and Syria. Now, folks, the plot thickens because over the past few weeks, and including just last week, I was in Washington, D.C., had some talks with some high-level officials there and a briefing from a senior Israeli official, which I shared here on the live stream last week. But there was optimism about Syria, cautious, guarded optimism, to be sure, but there was some optimism that perhaps as the Abraham Accords certainly seem set to expand, with Donald Trump back in office, of course, and with the Iranian axis reeling, Saudi Arabia coming to the table, and Syria and Lebanon have been the other two countries that a lot of people have been mentioning. Of course, Syria, new leadership. Is it meet the new boss, same as the old boss? A new dictatorship in Syria. Look, Assad collapsed, of course, back in December 2024, but now you have a jihadi government, the leader of which is a former leader of Al Qaeda. His name is Ahmed al-Shara, but for years he went by the name Mohammed al-Jolani. And now he's changed his name and his look. He wears a suit and tie and he speaks very professionally and he meets with Western leaders, etc. But in my experience, the jihadi leopard does not change its spots. And I've been covering this for 3 decades, and I've met jihadists and jihadi leaders and Islamist ideologues over the years. I've even interviewed them. But they usually are so dug into this ideology. So I say all that to say there was great optimism that al-Shara, this new leader in Syria, perhaps wanted to really turn a new leaf and really was serious about peace with Israel, normalizing relations with Israel, coming closer to the West. And he's had a lot of good reason to, right? I mean, President Trump met with him back in May, and Trump said, look, he sat with him and said, I'll give you a chance. You're saying all the right things. And the Saudis and the UAE, they essentially want to bring Syria in from the cold after years of Syria being in the Iranian orbit under Assad, being an Iranian client state. Syria is a crucial Arab nation, no doubt. I mean, crucial geographically in many ways. So the Saudis and the UAE in particular, and President Trump's swing through the Gulf states back in May, they said, look, Mr. President, we'd love if you could give this new Syrian government a chance. Just give them a chance and bring them in from the cold. And in doing so, Mr. President, look, it's a risk, no doubt. When it comes to jihadis, don't trust, but verify, verify, verify. It's a risk, but look, Mr. President, if it pans out, that's a big feather in your cap. You have an Abraham Accords agreement between Israel and one of its most bitter foes, Syria. And alongside that, you flip Syria, which people have talked about for years. We got to flip Syria into the Western orbit. You flip Syria, turn Syria away from Iran, Russia, China, and North Korea, that gathering storm coalition. You completely, I mean, already Syria has been emptied of Iranian and Hezbollah assets for the most part, but those assets are gone for good. If you can successfully bring Syria into the moderate column alongside Egypt and Jordan and the UAE and Bahrain, Morocco, other nations that have peace treaties, normalization with Israel, other Arab Muslim nations of the Sunni stripe. So there was optimism there. And Trump met with them and said, look, I'll give you a chance. But if you don't come through, al-Golani / al-Shara, whatever you're calling yourself these days, if you don't come through, we will place crippling sanctions back on your regime, and your regime will not be long for this world. So a calculated risk by President Trump, but a risk worth taking in his view, because the larger benefits, look, opening Syria up to commerce and investment, and you're throwing a bone, speaking of commerce and investment, you're throwing a bone to the Saudis, to the Gulf states, to the UAE, who are investing trillions in the United States. They announced that during that May swing, President Trump's May swing of the region. And you have Abraham Accords agreement between Syria and Israel. And again, Russia, Iran, North Korea, China no longer have a dependable friend in Damascus. That's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario may be what we're seeing play out right now. Folks, have you been following this? I mean, Israel has carried out heavy airstrikes in Damascus, the Syrian capital, over the past 24 hours. Why? Because this new regime in Damascus, the new Syrian government, which controls most of the country, large areas of the country at this point, is basically waging a jihad against the Druze minority, the D-R-U-Z-E, the Druze minority in southern Syria, pardon me, not too far from Israel's border. Now, along that Israel-Syria border, on the Israeli side of the Golan and the Syrian side of the Golan, you have a strong Druze presence. They are great soldiers. Ask any Israeli. They are loyal soldiers in the IDF, accomplished soldiers, and they're loyal to the Jewish state, but they have kin across the border in Syria as well. So what we've seen over the past few days in southern Syria, and look, since al-Shara came to power back in December 2024, we've seen sporadic outbreaks, and they're all too frequent. Sporadic's an understatement, where this regime has targeted Christians in Syria, has targeted the Alawite minority in Syria, and has targeted the Druze multiple times, including over the past few days. Now, reportedly, the chaos with the Druze began a few days ago. The Druze had some clashes in southern Syria with Bedouins there. As you can see, Syria is a bit of a melting pot, right? So the Druze were clashing with the Bedouins, and then government forces sent by al-Shara came on down to supposedly calm things down and get the situation under control, but the exact opposite has happened. They've exacerbated it. They've made it worse. They've set the region and the Israel-Syria border back on fire. And oh yeah, Israel, as of a few hours ago at least, was preparing for days of fighting in Syria, perhaps against al-Shara's government forces. I don't think at this point that it's going to come to that, because the U.S. is intervening. We're going to break all this down in a minute. But key point here, remember this before we dig into this deeper. One of the most important, I don't say this, this is not hyperbole. One of the most important military actions in the Middle East since 1967. I mean, in 58 years. Since the Six-Day War. Of course, you saw it with what happened in Iran and with Hezbollah. Do not discount the importance, ladies and gentlemen, of what Israel did in December 2024 in Syria. Remember, al-Golani / al-Shara came to power. Assad was deposed. He fled. He's living in exile in Moscow now. But when al-Shara came to power and the jihadis were on the march, they roared out of northwestern Syria with Turkish backing, surprise, surprise, rolled into Damascus and declared, we're the kings now. Israel, I mean, simultaneously, instantaneously, began carrying out heavy airstrikes throughout Syria. And what Israel did preemptively was to prevent these jihadis from getting their hands on Bashar al-Assad's arsenal. We're talking tanks. We're talking whatever navy he had, Israel destroyed it. We're talking weapons, I mean, WMDs in terms of biological weapons, chemical weapons. Assad certainly was dabbling in that. And look, he had a nuclear program as well, which you may remember back in 2007 that Israel eliminated. So Israel did the world a favor then, and it did the world a favor back in December when it destroyed air defense systems as well, most of Assad's military arsenal. Why? So it couldn't fall into the hands of jihadis, Al-Qaeda and ISIS-linked jihadis. A masterstroke by Israel. Incredible, important military maneuver. They defanged this regime before it even got off the ground and could start saber rattling. Let me tell you, right now, if this regime in Syria had advanced weaponry, had Assad's weaponry, who knows what they'd be doing? And right now, they're reportedly backing off, and they're kind of retreating and saying, okay, we're going to back off. But hey, if they had heavy weaponry, I mean, who knows what they'd be emboldened. Not only that, Do not discount the fact that those Syrian air defenses were destroyed. That gave Israel 1 month ago free reign. They were able to fly over Syria uninhibited on their way to Iran to strike. So massive. That, again, folks, I'm not exaggerating. It cannot be discounted, the importance of those strikes that Israel carried out in Syria back in December 2024. Massive. And look, we see the fruits now, bitter fruits, yes. But man, we're seeing sectarian clashes, of course, and the jihadis stirring up trouble, which is what jihadis do: maim, murder, mayhem, destroy. It's all they do. But it could be 1,000 times worse if Israel didn't do what it did back in December. So what's happening right now? What is Israel doing right now? What's unfolding at Israel's doorstep in Syria? And here's the big one. Are there prophetic implications? We talk about it a lot here, or we've talked about it. Our commenters are always weighing in. Erick, whenever I mention Damascus, Isaiah 17. What does Isaiah 17 say? The book of Isaiah, chapter 17, verse 1. It says, behold, Damascus will become a Damascus, the Syrian capital, one of the world's oldest inhabited cities, which has never been destroyed. Behold, Isaiah says, Damascus will become a ruinous heap. It will cease to be a city. Now, I don't know about you. I don't think that's been fulfilled yet. I wish it never would be. Believe me, but I'm just quoting the word of God. And to my mind, again, one of the world's oldest inhabited cities, and yet Damascus has never been completely destroyed. Even the Mongols, for all their savagery, did not completely raze Damascus to the ground. And yet the Bible says a day is coming when Damascus will cease to be a city. Even during that Syrian civil war from 2011 till looks like it's breaking out again. We had a cessation for a little bit there in 2024, but here it is. Even during all of that, Damascus is still a functioning city. But the Bible says a day will come when it's not. I lay that out to you. We've got a lot of prophecy buffs here, of course. What do you think? How does this play out? Is Isaiah 17 imminent? Do you think maybe it was already fulfilled in the past? Am I completely off here? What do you think? I'd love to know. In the meantime, hey, if you like what you're hearing, and we're going to, again, break down what's happening currently right now. Apparently, there's been, I don't want to say a ceasefire in Syria right now, but both sides backing up with U.S. prodding and encouragement, it seems, for the moment. But it's a tinderbox. We're going to break it down more of the specifics. But two things. Number one, if you like what you're hearing, current events, breaking news, chiefly from the Middle East and Israel, but we hit the whole world: China, Russia, America, and beyond. Be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you get alerts every time a new video is posted. Hey, you can also follow us Facebook, Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter. I'm at Erick Stakelbeck on Twitter and on X and Facebook. And I think at Erick.Stakelbeck on Instagram, where we're bringing you original content on all these issues. And we've also got a nightly television show. Yeah, we're on YouTube, and we've got a broadcast show on TBN, the world's largest Christian television network. It is called Stakelbeck Tonight. And it airs 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time with a re-air at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And guess what? We've got a YouTube channel as well. So it's at Stakelbeck Tonight, and you can catch all of the clips from the broadcast show right here on YouTube too. So we're busy, and that's the way we like it for such a time as this. So we'd love for you to join us, our watchmen and women on the wall. And hey, we're talking about one of the 7 fronts that Israel has been fighting on since October 7th, the Syria front. But it's a 7-front war. Look, Syria, Judea, Samaria, Gaza, Lebanon, the West Bank, Iran, Yemen. It's insane. It's that Iranian ring of fire that Israel has been battling on all sides. It's interesting because Syria was really the crown jewel of that ring of fire. Now that's taken off the chessboard, but there's a new threat perhaps with al-Shara, his government, and then Turkey waiting in the wings to fill any vacuum. What I'm saying is this: Israel, the Jewish people, the state of Israel, the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, the brave soldiers, are stretched mighty thin. And there's been great hardship. And that's where Magen David Adom comes in. They're our partner for today's live stream and our good friends. I mean, look, SaveLivesIsrael.com, folks. You've heard me talk about Magen David Adom. You want to bless Israel, fulfill that biblical mandate laid out in Genesis 12:3? Well, guess what? Magen David Adom is Israel's emergency services system. They are Israel's first responders. They respond to every terror attack, every Iranian ballistic missile, every suicide bomber. Magen David Adom first responders are the first ones on the ground, helping, blessing, doing God's work. They dispatch every ambulance in Israel, every single one, and they receive thousands of emergency calls a day, as you can imagine. They also control and distribute Israel's blood supply, not only to civilians, but to the IDF. This is an incredible organization, and it's largely volunteers. 90%, they're not getting paid for this, folks. 90% of the paramedics, first responders, and EMTs are volunteers. Can you imagine that? Putting their lives on the line. Over 30 Magen David Adom volunteers have been killed since October 7th in the line of action. 17 of their ambulances destroyed. And they're doing this literally out of the goodness of their hearts to bless their fellow Israeli. And not only Jews, Magen David Adom assist Arabs, every resident in the nation of Israel. Magen David Adom will help. It's an amazing organization. SaveLivesIsrael.com. Look, they need more ambulances, bandages, medical supplies. It's a seven-front war. And if you ask me, Eric, how can I help Israel right now? I can't get there. What can I do? This is the way. SaveLivesIsrael.com. They are literally on the front lines doing God's work, and you are blessing Israel when you bless Magen David Adom. Check them out. SaveLivesIsrael.com. Okay, that front, it's hot. Let's dig into it a bit from the Times of Israel here. I think the headline says it all. Border chaos as 1,000 Druze breach the frontier, breach the Israel-Syria border into Syria. At the same time, we've got heavy IDF airstrikes in Damascus. Israel's border with Syria, it says, turned to chaos on Wednesday, with around 1,000 Druze residents of Israel breaching the frontier and dozens of Syrian Druze trying to cross in the other direction as the toll from the deadly violence in the southern Syrian Druze region of Sweda continued to rise steadily after 4 days of clashes. The havoc on the border was mirrored in Damascus as Israel punctuated its demand that the Syrian regime leave the Druze community alone by conducting a series of airstrikes targeting Syria's military infrastructure, or what's left of it, right? Because as I mentioned earlier, in December 2024, Israel really did a number on Syria's military infrastructure, but I'm sure they're trying to rebuild it, no doubt. And Israel's saying, not so fast. We're sending a message. Zero tolerance, as Israel should. Now, the interesting dynamic here, as I mentioned, the close kinship, I mean, between the Druze across the region, but in particular around that Golan area between the Israel-Syria border. Look, 1,000 Israeli Druze stormed over the border today into Syria to help their brothers, their Druze brothers in Syria. At the same time, Druze in Syria were retreating into Israel. Chaos, and Israel can't have it. Let's face it, Israel can't have this. And Prime Minister Netanyahu said as much today, hey, we love our Druze brothers, and I'm quoting, but please let the IDF handle this. Don't take it into your own hands. So it's a tinderbox there on the border right now. And I've been to the Druze communities in northern Israel many times. I love the Druze. Great, welcoming people, wonderful people. I've had great meals, great experiences in those Druze villages and communities. And again, they're loyal to Israel. They're great soldiers in the IDF. But they pretty much, when it comes to that Israel-Syria border, for them, the border is indistinguishable. They don't really see a border there. Over the border in southern Syria and Sweda, places like that, where there are also Druze, it's all one big Druze community. That's just how they see it. So, look, Bibi is saying, let the IDF handle it. But the Druze, they're taking up arms, and they're storming over there to fight the jihadis. So this cannot continue. It's an intolerable situation. And look, al-Shara, every time this happens, where his government starts attacking religious minorities, there's always an excuse. Well, we didn't know, and they're getting out of hand. We didn't tell them to do that. We never said to do that. It's just bad apples, bad actors, kind of freelancing and operating on their own. We never ordered them to attack anyone. We just went down there to keep the peace. That was the order. Okay, then why does this keep happening? This is at least the fourth time since December where religious minorities in Syria have been viciously attacked. Folks, you should see some of the footage coming out from southern Syria, what they're doing to the Druze, what they did to the Alawites a few months ago, what they've done to the Christians. So what do you think? Is al-Shara a wolf in sheep's clothing? What's your take? I'd like to get your take. We've got one of the most educated audiences. You know what? The most educated audience here on YouTube when it comes to Middle East affairs. What do you think? Can this guy be trusted? For me, it's don't trust. Reagan said, Ronald Reagan, one of my faves, said about the Soviet Union during the Cold War, trust but verify. When it comes to jihadis, don't trust, but you better verify and then verify some more. Look, again, al-Shara had a golden opportunity here. Trump, on a silver platter, gave it to him. And Israel, behind the scenes, Israeli officials have reportedly met with Syrian officials from this new government in Damascus. He's got the backing of the Saudis, the UAE, et cetera, who want to bring Syria in from the cold and normalize things there after years of chaos and Iranian influence under Assad. So if this guy was serious about being a moderating force, man, is he blowing it. And folks, I'll go further. His regime may be toppled. He may not be long. His regime may not be long for power. I mean, the way this is going, he's got many other competing factions in Syria who would love to knock him off. And even more radical factions, by the way, who won't do the diplomatic dance with Israel, the United States, and the West, who aren't interested in that at all, who are hardcore jihadis. So you have an absolute chance. And there's still an ISIS presence in Syria. ISIS, President Trump kept his word, God bless him, smashed that ISIS caliphate during his first term in office, which once, folks, get this, wrap your head around this. It stretched across Syria and Iraq, 58,000 square miles ISIS once controlled. That's the size of Great Britain. I mean, wow. And then it all whittled away thanks to President Trump and working with the Kurds on the ground. Amazing. A promise made, promise kept. That caliphate was destroyed. But ISIS still does have a presence in Syria. And they're chomping at the bit. They'd love to roll into Damascus. So al-Shara's got competition. He had a golden opportunity here. It seems to me he's blowing it. And enough of the excuses. You're a jihadi. And if you really want to rein these guys in, your minions, these thugs who are attacking the Druze, you would have done it. So I think the great hope that Syria could be flipped, maybe on life support right now, needless to say, as a jihadi is being exposed. He was exposed years ago. Look, he had a multi-million-dollar bounty on his head from the United States, did al-Shara. Folks, 7 months ago, he's wearing fatigues, combat fatigues, and declaring Allahu Akbar. And he's talked in the past about not only rolling into Damascus, but rolling into Jerusalem. So I've watched all this with a wary eye, as you know, as you've been watching me over the past several months. And again, I said, okay, calculated risk for sure. Maybe it pays off. Maybe the guy really has changed his spots. I doubt it. Maybe it pays off. But if it doesn't, he'll have hell to pay. There will be severe consequences, starting with crippling sanctions, which it's the end of his regime if that happens. So, look, he could hang on here. He could right the ship, or Syria could descend into even further chaos. It's all on the table right now. It's interesting. Israel, once again, is stabilizing through force Peace through strength. Israel is the epitome of that. Israel is stabilizing the world's most unstable region through military force. And that's the only way to do it. And then after that happens, then diplomacy, Abraham Accords, all that good stuff. But before that could happen, a lot of things had to happen. I mean, look at President Trump's first term when the Abraham Accords came in full force. ISIS caliphate crushed. Iran nuclear deal, pulled out of it, took out Soleimani, the Iranian terror master, designated Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps as a terror organization, recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital, sending a message to the entire region, Israel's not going anywhere, we've got their back. The list goes on. So that made the Arab, and also Trump was using leverage, economic carrots and sticks, and that helped bring UAE, Bahrain, Morocco to the table with Israel. And the main reason was, again, peace through strength. Those nations were petrified of the growing Iranian nuclear program, but nuclear power generally at their doorstep. They saw and they see Israel as the strong horse. So they said, let's get closer to Israel so we can survive the Iranian onslaught. Again, peace through strength. Israel smashing Hamas in Gaza, smashing Hezbollah in Lebanon, smashing the Iranian regime and its nuclear program. And now potentially smashing this new Syrian jihadi government is creating stability. Now you might say, oh my gosh, that's terrible. The Middle East is not like other regions. And I think Westerners oftentimes look at the Middle East through Western lenses. Big mistake. It's a different place. I've been there dozens and dozens of times, all throughout the region. It's a different kind of place with a different kind of mentality that Westerners can't wrap their heads around many times. So Israel's doing what it needs to do. And out of the chaos, Israel can bring stability. But they're doing it with a firm hand, peace through strength, and establishing firmly the Jewish state as the region's lone superpower. Sorry, Iran, your aspirations of superpowerdom, if that's a word, are over. And Israel is not only a regional superpower, it's a world power now, punching far above its weight. Imagine this, the size of the state of New Jersey. Imagine that, accomplishing what Israel is accomplishing. Only God, only the God of Israel. I'm going to end on that note, and I look forward to reading your comments about Isaiah 17. I've said these, I've called them the October 7th wars. Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, Iran itself, Syria, the list goes on. But
sorry, I can't tell which speaker you are referring.
Siri, do you have a thought on that? On Isaiah 17? I doubt it. But out of the October 7th wars, I think we've seen prophetic chess pieces put into place. Obviously, the Ezekiel war is one, but is Isaiah 17 one as well? We're going to pick this up in the days to come. I want to get your comments. Be sure to leave them. Great stuff today. Great being with you. Keep the people of Syria in your prayers, by the way, especially the Christians there, the minorities there, who just want to live their lives and are being targeted by jihadis. So keep them in your prayers. Until next time, thanks for joining us. God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace.
Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.